There we go. Let's get a big good morning, folks. All righty. Can we do bigger? No, you're just fine. You're the perfect size. Good morning. All right, so welcome to Monday. Happy Monday, folks. We are looking at chamomile today. So chamomile. Now, when we talk about chamomile, there's a number of plants that we're talking about. There's not one plant called chamomile. Generally, when we're talking about chamomile made as a tea, we are usually talking about German chamomile. And so that is primarily what we're going to be discussing today. Using it internally, generally German chamomile, although traditionally other forms were used. And you can use other forms, we'll discuss them. But the default chamomile, when we're just talking chamomile, is Matricaria, and the species is Recutita. So Matricaria recutita is the current name for it, and there are, hi Mauricio, so this is the current name. There are older names, but generally nowadays when we are talking about chamomile, we're talking about Matricaria recutita. And then the common name for this one is German. So German chamomile, Matricaria recutita. And this is the family is the Asteraceae. So that is what we are going to be drinking together. So hopefully folks online have made a cup of chamomile tea. If not, there's still time for you to make some tea. It extracts quickly. It's not. Just a moment. And then we've got that it does monograph. The word left my brain. All right, so I didn't want this to steep too long, and and I put it in the wrong pot. So I'm going to quickly fix this because I put it in the pot that did not have water, hot water in it. It had cold water in it. Mm-hmm. But that's perfect because I have a heater here. These will all simmer. And then we can talk about the other primary species. And this is the other species that we'll be working with today and which we have growing outside. So that's the big bed that we have outside. So have you smelled that? We'll go by there afterwards because it's pretty amazing. So this is German chamomile. The other primary chamomile that we'll be talking about later is Roman chamomile. It's also in the Asteraceae family, a very close relative, but it's not even in the same genus. It's a completely different genus. So Roman chamomile is Anthemis, and nobile. So different species, same family, and very different growth habits. So when you grow German chamomile, and again, this is the primary chamomile of commerce, it is an annual plant. So it grows in 1 year. You start from seed, or it will seed from the previous year's plants. So those seeds are planted and they grow up and they grow very, very tall. So generally we're looking at 18 to 24 30 inches tall. They grow really, really tall. And we harvest the flowers right when they first pop up. So they wouldn't be popping up yet. In the beginning of summer, generally around here, is when they start to flower. And so we would harvest those flowers. And that is what you see as chamomile tea. Those cute little yellow buds are those flowers. Now, Roman chamomile, I took a cutting from our Roman chamomile out in front of the apothecary. Roman chamomile is a perennial. So German chamomile is an annual. It grows for 1 year, sets seed, dies back, and then it's gone until the next year when it starts from seed again. Roman chamomile is a perennial, which means it grows year after year after year. And it's a low-growing plant, so it grows maybe 6 to 10 inches if it's really going nice and tall, but it will eventually plop over. And where it falls over, where the nodes hit the ground, it will root, and so it spreads. It's a creeping perennial, so year after year after year, it spreads further and further and further. And so we have this patch out in front of us is about 2 years old now, and it's nice, it's big. There's a tradition of growing Roman chamomile, like this one, the perennial one, in a bed, in a raised bed, as a sleeping bed. So you grow it in like a 4 by 6 patch, and you can lay down on it, and the pressure of your body on the foliage crushes it and releases the aromatics. Because here's the interesting about Roman chamomile, is that in Roman chamomile, it's the foliage that's aromatic. And in German chamomile, it's the flowers that are aromatic. So I'm going to pass these over to you so you can smell. You have to smell the real plant. And then we'll also look at the essential oils when we're looking at those. Essential oil chemistry is a really important part of chamomile chemistry, but it's by no means all of it. And so we'll look at all of it. Okay, so Roman chamomile. Roman chamomile has a higher possibility of allergic response. And so, and it is more bitter, and it doesn't have a lot of the therapeutic properties that chamomile is known for. They're just not available in Roman chamomile. So we use Roman chamomile nowadays almost exclusively as an essential oil. Whereas, again, for tea and most other for internal usage, generally we are using the German. All right, and our tea should be ready right by now. We're just waiting for you. I made tea. I put it all in my little pot, and I had heated up the water in the pot. So it was a cold extraction, which just does not serve us very well. So that's German, right? This is German, yeah. So we're going to be tasting German today. And I recognized that there was a problem because you want your chamomile tea to be this kind of lovely golden color. And it wasn't a lovely golden color. It was a lovely pale color. And I didn't get this steam coming out of it. So this is one where I want you to, that's very full. Breathe in this steam. You just had this. There you go. Oh, I didn't put up the table today. Sorry about that. So one thing about chamomile that's important to note is that there are some significantly powerful anti-inflammatory effects that come from certain compounds in the steam of chamomile that are only created when it's heated. They're only there in the steam, and they're not there in a cold extraction, right? So when we breathe in chamomile steam, there are really unique compounds that are only found here and found in the essential oil, because the essential oil is is effectively the steam that was caught, right? So if you breathe in through your nose, so it can come up into the upper respiratory tract, and then breathe in through your mouth, so it's going down into the lungs, and sort of feel the effects of the steam, and then taste it, drink it in, and then see what the effects of the tea and how that compares. There's comfy pillows behind you for your butt if you want to grab a pillow. Oh, good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Karen. Good morning, Rosa. Good to see you again. Now, I did make this as a relatively mild tea. Generally, I like to make the teas stronger, more medicinal strength, but there's a significant difference in chamomile when it's made in a lower dose or a higher dose. So in the lower dose, what we're really getting in this lighter chamomile, we are primarily getting the aromatic compounds that are being pulled out. So we're going to have another cup in a little bit after that steeps for a little bit longer, and we'll note the difference in the flavor. So this primarily because it was short term, it's not as strong, but it's also been just a shorter period of time that it's been in contact with the water. We primarily have those aromatic compounds. And so what do those aromatic compounds do in chamomile? Well, first of all, what do you think about the taste?
I feel my tongue immediately.
Your tongue immediately was going, yes. Yeah. So what do you think that means?
Astringent.
Astringent, yeah. It's definitely going to be astringent and toning. Yep, absolutely toning to tissues. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. The interesting thing is we'll play with the mark of the plant left over. There's quite a lot of mucilage that will come out later. So as you steep it longer, it is going to become more moistening, but that takes a little bit of time to extract. So this rapidly extracted plant is going to be more astringent. What does the flavor remind you of? Flowers. Happy dance. Love this. I know, Con, right? Yeah, this is just so. Have you seen have I shown you the chamomile growing, the Roman chamomile, not the German, growing outside of the apothecary? It's adorable. It's adorable. I was trying to braid my hair and have it be all cute this morning, but like one side was coming out, so it looked all weird, and I kept on seeing myself on camera with this one. So ponytail it is. All right, and then I wasn't able to like pay attention to this because I'm like, oh, my hair. I'm over that now. So the right amount, Rosa, the right amount per cup sort of depends on what you are looking for in your tea. So if you're making something as a beverage tea, a milder tea, a tea where you're looking primarily for those aromatics, a heaping teaspoon per cup of water is going to be a good basic dosage, and then steep for 5 to 10 minutes. Now, if you steep for longer, as we'll talk about, we can sort of see this getting darker, right? More deeply colored as it's extracted for a longer period of time. We'll taste that and compare. But here what we have is primarily those essential oils. Also, those essential oils are really small molecular size, right? They're tiny little molecules, so they're able to extract very, very quickly. So we have these essential oils are primarily what we've got here. Now, those essential oils are really powerful. And so they have effects on the gastrointestinal tract, taken as a tea, but also on the respiratory tract when we're breathing it as a steam. Again, remember that there are compounds called agilenes. Specifically in this one, it's called chamagiline, lowercase a. So chamagiline is a compound that is produced when the chamomile is heated, and we can inhale that and breathe that in, and those anti-inflammatory compounds, when we're breathing the steam in, are delivered directly to the mucosa of the sinuses and down into the lungs. So for inflammatory conditions of the respiratory tract, inhaling steam of chamomile is incredibly good medicine and very different from what you'll be getting from taking it internally as a tea or as a wash. So primarily from this Chamomile. Now, when it concentrates very, very strongly, when, for example, that's so funny, Leah's just walking by and she's got, it looks like a bundle of, oh no, that's chaparral, because she's doing a class on chaparral. But it's in flower and it looked like little tiny chamomile flowers. But I'll bet it's chaparral because they're little happy yellow flowers. All right, so chamomile essential oil. So this is the essential oil that is distilled from the plant, right? See that color? So Chamomile, when it's isolated and concentrated, it is one of the blue oils. So it presents as this dark, dark, dark blue color. Now the plant has no blue in it. Chamomile is an artifact of distillation. So it extracts, the heat extracts it, and then it turns blue. And when you can concentrate it into an essential oil, you have that dark color. And that shows the presence of chamomile. That's, again, a very powerful anti-inflammatory agent. So we can extract that, and it is part of the essential oil. So we can extract that into water. We can extract that into oil, into alcohol. It's in any of those products that are used internally as a tea or topically on the skin for any kind of inflammatory conditions. It's going to be very, very beneficial. The other thing is drinking it as a tea. It is antispasmodic. So it helps, and it has a specificity for the gut, for the smooth muscle of the stomach and the gastrointestinal tract. So it helps to relieve spasticity of those tissues. So for people who, when they, for various different things, for irritable bowel syndrome, for colitis, for any kind of inflammatory gastrointestinal disorders, or for ulceration in the gastrointestinal tract, for esophageal irritation. In much the same way we would use chamomile topically on the skin, we can use it in the gastrointestinal tract. And it's important to remember that the gastrointestinal tract lining is epithelial tissue, just like skin. And so things that affect the skin are often going to be seen to be beneficial in much the same way in the gastrointestinal tract. And the reverse is often true. So chamomile is very powerful for pain, inflammation, ulceration, trauma to the gut mucosa. And it helps to relieve spasticity, cramping, spasms, irritability, and inflammation in the gut. Stimulates granulation tissue, stimulates new cell growth. It's really phenomenal. It is really phenomenal, and we tend to think of chamomile as sort of as mild, as medicine for babies. We give it to babies and children, and it's cute. And, you know, you have Celestial Seasonings, little tea bags, and, oh, isn't chamomile tea adorable? But it's really strong medicine. It's really good medicine. It's very safe, but it's very effective. So, teas of any extraction of chamomile in the gastrointestinal tract is going to be really effective. The Roman chamomile, the other species, we also have the essential oil of, and let's look at that. Whoopsie, hello. Oh, it's right under me. Thank you. There we go. So this is Roman chamomile essential oil. So very different, right? So what's it missing?
The
Chamomile, yes. Isn't it lovely? Yes. The scent of Roman chamomile is much more sweet and delicious and lovely. German chamomile has a more medicinal scent. It has a more medicinal action. But Roman chamomile is just happy making. Yes. Like Khan said, it's a happy. Yeah. Yeah. So they are significantly different. So here's a way to tell if you are buying a product that says that it has German chamomile in it, it had better be blue, right? If you buy something that says it's got German chamomile essential oil in it and it is pure white, either it has a homeopathic amount, a minute amount, or they're using Roman chamomile or a scent, a fragrance. But if it should be blue if it is essential oil. So German chamomile also contains a high amount of a compound called bisabolol. These are two primary compounds in chamomile that really give chamomile a lot of the therapeutic effect that we in the German, yes. So the bisabolols, alpha bisabolol in general, is a very strong anti-inflammatory, specific again to epithelial tissue, and it makes chamomile extracts particularly beneficial for conditions like eczema, for skin trauma, inflammation, where the skin has stopped being an effective barrier and where the skin, there's a lot of inflammation and reactivity. The skin is just pissed off, right? It's pissed off and it no longer remembers what it's supposed to do because it's just so unhappy with the world in general. As you're doing the long-term work of finding out what exactly it is, it's pissing it off and all of that, you can use chamomile topically to help to quiet that down, infused into oil. I really love chamomile infused into jojoba oil and then mixed with an equal amount of shea butter. Shea butter is another plant that the fatty acid chemistry of shea butter is really specific for helping to establish barrier function in the skin. And jojoba is really beneficial. We talked about in the class in extraction of constituents and allowing them to go deeply into the tissues. So when we combine the shea butter and the jojoba was an effective solvent for pulling that out. And then you get the dual action of the jojoba compounds being able to penetrate very deeply into the underlying tissues, quieting down all that inflammation in the deeper tissues. And then you have the shea butter able to work on the surface, helping to build that back up again and give protection. Good morning, lovely. So Roman chamomile doesn't have all of that. So when we look at German chamomile versus Roman chamomile, we're talking about the essential oils. Largely, both of them are going to be beyond their effects on tissue effects, on the physiology. They have effects on the nervous system and emotion, right? So they're both very calming and relaxing and sort of happy making. But definitely the Roman chamomile is a little bit more happy making than the German, just by dint of it being sweeter and more delightful. The chemistry is very similar. Here, I'll just give you those because it's fun to smell them and they're in my face. The Roman chamomile has all of the uplifting and anxiety relief, happy-making qualities of chamomile. It does not have the anti-inflammatory effects. So if you're choosing one or the other, you want to think about what is the result that I'm wanting. If I want to make something from chamomile, say a body lotion that is really more for calming and relaxing before sleep or for anxiety or just to make me feel happy, either of them is going to be fine. It's going to be wonderful. Use the Roman chamomile. If you grow the Roman chamomile, you can infuse the foliage. Again, all of the foliage has the essential oil in the Roman chamomile, so you can just harvest it and extract that into oil or water and use it. If you are using the German chamomile, it is the flowers only. So they're both going to be helpful for nervous system and psychological effects, but only the German chamomile is going to be helpful for specifically the anti-inflammatory effects. Chamomile is also a very good palliative for pain. So generally, if there's pain conditions, nerve pain or tissue pain, trauma pain, again, topically or in the gastrointestinal tract, Now, the benefit of using German chamomile is not only is it helpful for relieving the pain immediately, it is also giving you those long-term healing effects. So you get an immediate palliative effect, and you get a long-term supportive, restorative, reparative effect. Hi, come on in. From use of that. Now let's have some of the stronger tea. You get just the strong tea. We have the medicinal strength for you. You can grab a chair over there.
I'm allergic to that.
There. Here, you get a little hoodie ears. There you go. And I'll drink mine.
Ooh.
So those are the essential oils. And then here's some tea for you. Now what we should notice here with the longer steeping, this isn't too bad, but it tends to be a little bit more bitter, right? There's a little bit more of the bitter compounds extract over a long period of time. And again, I did keep this a little bit milder in the dosage to make it more pleasant for you all to drink. But this is another use of chamomile that we often don't think of. Again, going to the gastrointestinal tract, chamomile with a higher dosage and that longer steeping has those bitter components along with those aromatics. So in that earlier extraction, the lighter extraction, we primarily just got those essential oils. But now we have the essential oils. We also have those bitter compounds. And so the effects on the digestive system is much more wider ranging with this tea than with the first tea that we drank. So here's one of the downsides to using your chamomile tea bags and dunking them for 5 minutes and extracting them. If you want these deeper qualities, the long-term qualities, oftentimes the dosage, Sherry, good morning. It's been hours since I've seen you. Then you'd want to, again, Rosa, this kind of goes towards your question about dosing. You'll want to up the dosage and then up the length of time, the duration of extraction. And here you can even see in the color, along with the flavor, it's stronger medicine, but you still have that sweet,
Very sweet.
delicious, and lovely aromatic. I love chamomile so much.
Can you share a very short story?
Yes, yeah.
So I have a chamomile story. When I was little, my
Mhm.
mom used to cure me of red eye
Uh-huh.
with chamomile compresses.
Yes.
And after 50 years, I have the chance to do the same with her. Now,
Oh.
now she became like a little girl,
Mm-hmm.
and I went to Mexico and she had red eye on me.
Oh, Mauricio. Oh, so you got to care for your mom in the same way as
Now, chamomile.
that circle comes back. Oh, Mauricio, that is a wonderful.
It's so effective. 2-3 days and she was
Yeah.
almost immediately.
Oh, that is so good. It really is powerful as a poultice. In fact, I'm so glad you said that because I do want to show you folks. I like to reuse things. I like to get as much as I can out of medicine. So when you make your tea, right, you have a water extract of your plant, and you have the herbs that are left over. This is the marc, right? This is properly called marc, M-A-R-C, is the leftover plant medicine from when you make your tea. And chamomile, marc, is lovely stuff because this, so you can see all of those, the little flower heads that we were extracting. So this is, even though we've extracted constituents from it, it is still medicinally active. And so what I love to do with these is I take them, I don't have one of my trays here, but I take the marc and I make it into little mounds of about a tablespoon. And I will put this in the freezer and freeze it. So after it's frozen, I take it and put it in a container, and now I have little chamomile mark pucks that are readily available. It's a small amount, and if I have an inflammatory condition of my skin, or if I want to make a poultice for the eyes, like Mauricio was saying, chamomile is classically used for pink eye, conjunctivitis, any kind of irritation or inflammation of the eyes, because it is such an effective anti-inflammatory. And here you have all of those compounds extracted, but just kind of held there. So you can take this and take it out of the freezer. It'll thaw very, very rapidly. And now I've got a cold, moist, chamomile-rich poultice. So I can use this on my skin as it thaws, and I can just apply it. And because it's somewhat mucilaginous, and I'll give you some to kind of play with. We can send this around and just take a little bit and mess with it. But it stays in this nice little compress form. See how it doesn't fall apart? It just stays like this. And this is really, really effective for bug bites or bee stings or nettle rashes or sunburns, any kind of heat sign in the skin, where that cooling, calming, anti-inflammatory, plus the cold from being ice and from the moisture from being wet, right? All of those energetic and medicinal effects are going to be really, really effective there. If you take this and put it into gauze, and then you could put it directly on the eye. You, of course, wouldn't want to put this in the eye because you'll get little floaties in your eyeball. But some gauze, and then apply this directly on there, and it can be very effective for you. So I love being able to just take the leftover mark and just put it into your fridge. This is very, very handy to have, especially with summer coming up, as a just quick little first aid goodie. You can also feel, as you play with that a little bit more, you can feel this more mucilaginous kind of moistening quality that doesn't always come out immediately in the tea. So it's definitely there. It just kind of stays in the plant material a little bit longer. Takes a while to extract. So that is the that's the best way to use the mark left over from that. So the bitter chamomile, when we have the stronger chamomile tea, we can use chamomile as a bitter. So bitter flavors, we know, stimulate digestive activity. Right? The bitter flavor going over our taste buds has a number of different effects. It is a sialagogue. We can increase saliva production. We can sort of feel that more saliva in our mouth because the salivary glands are part of our digestive system. So we have an increase in saliva production, an increase in hydrochloric acid production from the stomach, from the parietal cells in the stomach. So we have an increase in acid production in the stomach, an increase in bile production from the liver, an increase in pancreatic juices from the pancreas. So all of the digestive juices are activated when we have the bitter herbs, right? So chamomile is a bitter herb, and it's an anti-inflammatory herb. And this can be really, really helpful for those people who have reflux, right? Irritation and inflammation of the esophagus, and irritation of the gut. Also, duodenal ulcers. This would also fall into this. Duodenal ulcers, ulceration of the very beginning of the small intestine, where the stomach empties into the small intestine. In both of those areas, we have more acid on tissues that don't really like acid, in the esophagus and the duodenum. They don't like acid. There's not supposed to be acid there. Having bitter herbs can help to improve digestion and improve the neutralization of acid as it moves down, and also protect and soothe and heal that traumatized tissue. So it's, for many people, even though we generally tend to think of conditions of reflux and GERD, heartburn, being a condition of too much acid, what we actually see is that it is generally conditioned of too little an amount of stomach acid, causing the delay in gastric emptying, bloating, gas, abdominal distension, and a lack of that, the closing of the upper esophageal sphincter, right? The sphincter doesn't close unless the acidity of the stomach is in the right pH. And at the right pH, then it'll close down and be a closed system. But if you don't have enough stomach acid, it stays open because it hasn't gotten the chemical signal to close. And so while we tend to think that the condition is too high an amount of stomach acid, it is often, quite often a condition of too low an amount of stomach acid. We can easily diagnose that. And that's by, if you have digestive disruption after a meal, have a little bit of acid. Take a little bit of lemon juice or apple cider vinegar or something in water and drink that and just wait a few minutes. Did that, dropping that pH down to making your digestive system more acidic, make the digestive system feel better or worse? It'll generally be one or the other right away. And so you can see that's not a way of treating it, right? We're not deficient in lemon juice and we're not deficient in apple cider vinegar. We're deficient in gastric acidity. So if dropping that pH down using another tool works really well, then taking bitters is going to be really beneficial. Taking bitters and increasing the ability of the stomach to produce more of that acid on its own, re-establishing proper digestive function, that's going to be beneficial. There are some people who will feel worse. They drink the apple cider vinegar or the lemon when their digestion is upset and it feels worse. For them, they are going to need to calm and soothe and protect and maybe drop that acidity down. It is the minority, though, who actually have too high an amount of stomach acid when there is that those digestive issues. So either way, chamomile is going to be very, very beneficial. Des, hi. Oh, I love you. Desiree, yes, Mauricio's here. He says hi. All right, so let's see. Questions about chamomile? Well, we're going to take a little. I love you too, Des. I miss you. Come visit. Come visit because I've got Roman chamomile growing all over the front of the apothecary, and it smells wonderful. We'll go outside. This one has been kind of played with a lot in class, so it doesn't smell quite as much. But we'll go out and get a fresh one, and you can smell that. So I urge people to grow chamomile, grow German chamomile. Again, primarily, this is the plant that we're mostly talking about today. It is very easy to grow, and right now is a great time to seed it. It'll grow very, very rapidly, and you'll be able to harvest all throughout late spring into early summer. It does generally tend to get a little bit too hot here and chamomile will die back. But if you let some of your chamomile go to seed, it'll drop the seed down. And then even though it dies back, next spring, you'll have more little chamomile plants growing there. And so over seasons, you can increase the size of your little chamomile patch just by having it self-seed. Yeah.
As far as like German to Roman,
Mhm.
isn't one of them like will kind of keep, like you said, it will seed out and then regrow, and one of them doesn't? Or does
Yes.
it stay?
So Roman chamomile, this one is a perennial plant.
Okay.
Yeah. And so a perennial plant, it doesn't die back. It just keeps on growing year after year after year, right? So yes, Roman chamomile is perennial. So you just plant it once and it'll just be happy. And this one does spread, and you'll see we just had a couple of plants, and now it's big, especially with all of the rain that we got. The rain that we got, and like we said, that got a lot of water right there. It's a happy little patch of chamomile there. Whereas the German chamomile only grows for 1 year. It's going to set seed and it's going to all die back. Yes. If you want a good source of German chamomile seeds, get some chamomile tea. Chamomile tea is the flower heads. And when the flower heads are harvested, many of them will go to seed. They'll make ripe seed in that flower head, and you can just take your tea before you boil it in water, right? But sprinkle it on the soil. Not all of it, not all of the seeds in that flower head are ripe and viable, because generally it has to mature a little bit longer. But in harvesting of chamomile, they don't check every single flower to see that it is in the perfect state. Many flowers have mature and viable seeds in there. So yeah, just grab some flowers, squish them up and sprinkle them on the soil, and you've got seeds. You won't be able to see the seeds in there because chamomile seeds are tiny, 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 and they're just hidden in all of the plant material there. But you'll get them. It's a great way to get seeds. Yes. A lot of herbs are like that. A lot of herbs, when you buy flowers, Jamaica will have seeds in it. Calendula, of course, has seeds in it. The chamomile does. You can get a lot of free seeds from your herbs. Yes. All right. So that is chamomile. It was one of these great things when someone told me about it. I was like, oh yeah, well, of course. Of course there are. Yeah, it makes sense. You see them in calendula because they're big, 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 but we don't see them in. So yeah, I know. Flowers make seeds. I don't remember what my class is next week, but oh, you're so good. Thank you. I looked at it this morning because I needed to know. Oh, it is calendula. We're staying with the Asteraceae family. So next week we'll talk about calendula. And we have some beautiful calendula growing there. So we'll nibble on some fresh calendula flowers, and we use dried, and we've got some calendula infused oil, and we'll talk about the unique fatty acids that are found in calendula seeds. So this is another thing about using plants that go to seed. A lot of times we tend to think that, and calendula, we'll talk about this more next week. In fact, I should be just waiting for next week to talk about this, but I'm going to talk about it now. A lot of times we'll see things like seeds in a dried plant material, right? And you think, I don't want to use that part. I just want to use the beautiful, the petals, right? The petals of the calendula are the therapeutic parts. No, the calyces, the green part underneath, has really important medicine in it. And the seeds have been found to have a unique fatty acid called calendic acid found in the seeds of calendula that many people will set aside and toss out. They'll compost them or throw them outside if they're being really, really on top of things. Because they don't think that has a place in their medicine making, whereas calendula infused oil made with the calyx, that green part, and with those seeds has a much wider range of chemistry than calendula made from just the petals. And sometimes if you buy calendula from some suppliers, they will only give you the petals. You buy just the petals. Or again, people go through and garble them and take just the petals out and throw the less therapeutically active form of it away. You don't want to use that. We really do want to kind of pay attention to what parts of plants we use. And if we can use more of the plant, if we can use the whole plant, then there's more respect for the plant. There's more respect for the chemistry of the plant. And we make better medicine. We make better medicine using all of that stuff. So we'll talk more about that next week. I'll see y'all later. Des, come back and play with us next week. I love you all, and I will see you later. Bye-bye. Okay. And there we go.